All right, we will now move on to the questions from the audience, and I'll be asking them in a random order, but I will tell the person who goes first that they're going to be first, and actually it's going to be you, Mr. Scharf, and I believe you have a minute for your answers, correct?
No, 2 minutes.
No, for the questions? I think it has to be 1 minute because we're going to get very few questions. If it's 2 minutes, that's 24 minutes per question, or 25 minutes, and I think it needs to be 1 minute. What do you think? Pardon me?
Excuse me, could you clarify that again, what we're doing here now?
We're clarifying, and perhaps I'm wrong, that you get 1 minute for your response to these questions that are coming in from the audience.
Okay.
You will get 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Okay.
But you'll get 1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute. I thought it was 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to start with Mr. Scharf. What is your position on allowing granny units in Palo Alto as a way to increase housing while not concentrating this density in any one neighborhood?
I think it's definitely something we should explore. In fact, we brought it up at the Regional Housing Committee, and we actually managed to get our ABAG numbers reduced. Managed to get our ABAG numbers reduced by 30 units of existing units that are already being built every year. It's definitely something that's worth exploring. It has less impacts on the community without, though, having properly vetting it. I'm not going to say tonight that we should do that, but I definitely think it's a concept worth exploring.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss, you're next.
I would contextualize my response in saying that I think the Association of Bay Area Governments is a biased element, and the building industry is very powerful, and I think we do have the right to push back, and we might risk some exposure in a legal arena, but it might be worth it because it is really quite contentious for the very least, and it's sort of, in my opinion, a red herring case, the granny units. I'm more concerned with dense packed housing in some of the areas on the housing element. Specifically, I'm wondering when Fry's leaves the 15-acre parcel in Ventura, perhaps we can push back against Soprado. They have a 17 units per acre plan for 200 new homes. I'd rather see a large park for Ventura and maybe 100 homes.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Ms. Holman.
Yes, also serving on the Regional Housing Mandate Committee, I supported allowing some second units and counting those towards our numbers. But one of the things I think it's important to realize here is the Regional Housing Mandate numbers that are put upon the communities by ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Government, is that we don't count lost units. And the truth of the matter is that we lose more units a year than we gain in terms of cottages, second units, and we have also multifamily units that are demolished and lost to the production of larger, more expensive units. So we have been trying to push back, and we have pushed back against ABAG, but we have a long ways to go in trying to get state changes to really address what the real fallacies are and misalignments are with ABAG.
Thank you. Ms. Koo?
I do support granny units in order to bring up the numbers for housing here in the city throughout different neighborhoods. However, I do think that it's very important that we do not forget that it does have impacts to our community, such as parking, which is already an issue in a lot of the neighborhoods. So I would want to make sure that it does not have any more cumulative impacts within the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wolbach?
In the last couple of months, I found something that I speculated is actually true. As I've been knocking on doors and talking to Palo Altans up and down the city, people have second units. They're illegal frequently. People have extended family members, renters, friends, caregivers sleeping in their house, but they can't establish a legal second unit for them, even in neighborhoods like my own, Palo Verde neighborhood, where we don't really have much parking impact except in a couple of small blocks. We should lower the threshold for plot size in order to allow second units, granny units, in-law units, where appropriate in Palo Alto. People in Palo Alto are getting squeezed, and when you ask them, they'll tell you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnston?
I agree that granny units are something that we should look at carefully because I think they could be a solution to some of the housing shortage that we have. So I would favor looking at that. I would favor the point that Corey just made about reducing the lot size necessary for a granny unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy?
My answer is absolutely. New York is doing it. I read it in New York Times the other day that Mayor DeBasso, I may be misspelling his name or missaying his name, but Manhattan is looking into it. The thing is, we want to invite people into this community, and the only way we can do it is using existing housing. So I don't think we want to call it granny unit. I think we want to call it a second, whatever they can put together for one or two people. That becomes also an income for the family. So I'm absolutely for it. Let's do it. Let's change the laws and rezone everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas?
I am absolutely as enthusiastic as Corey and Reddy. One time, my wife and I knew a woman who had been displaced from her house, and even though we didn't know her too terribly well, without even talking about it, we agreed we had to do something about it. I'm damned if we didn't find a place for her. It was around this time of year when she was displaced, so I was worried about the rains starting, and it turned out I was right. We found a place in our neighborhood, which is rife with those illegal units that Corey talks about, in time, because within about 3 or 4 days after she moved in, the rain started that year. So I would even advocate, we have, I think, a law in the books that says we have to install electronic or electric chargers for electric cars. Why not make it mandated for new construction to put a grandparent unit perhaps on a separate garage?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Philseth?
Yeah, I think, we sort of touched on this when you asked before about housing. I think, as the former mayor said, I think granny units could certainly have a role in a larger housing plan, right? I think, we'd have to look at the parameters of that. I think the most pressing thing is the city really has to grow up and decide, how fast do we want to grow? How much housing do we want to have here, right? Because everything else flows from that. The amount of space we need in our schools, the amount of space we need in our parks, city service, infrastructure, and so forth. So I'd really like to see the city focus on that, but I think that to the extent that we're talking about granny units, I do see value to the community in having those, so I think those could be a part of it.
Thank you. Mr. Du Bois?
I'm currently on the Citizens Working Group for the housing element, and we see about 4 granny unit applications a year. So in our new element, we have 32 granny units out of a 2,000 housing allocation. So it's not a panacea. I think we should explore allowing granny units on smaller lot sizes, but if we do that, they should probably be attached to the main house and not near the fence where they look over to the neighbors' yards. And I do think they should be fully parked.
Thank you. And Ms. Shepherd?
I think everything has been well articulated. We are finishing our housing element right now, which sets us for the next 7 years. And I think that they've done it, the Housing Committee has done a great job of that, and I'm in favor of having granny units as well. And also trying to come up with different levels of being able to figure out how to reinvent some of the zoning that we have so that we can be innovative and creative to handle some of the projects that are going to be coming forward and the needs that we have for housing.
Thank you. You can remain standing because you're going to be number 1 for the next question. What do you feel are the...
Excuse me. Will I get to speak to this issue?
I'm sorry. Did I miss you? How did I miss you? Hold on a second here. Yes, absolutely.
I'm really down with these units. The fact is, I've talked about it with the realtors. It's in the housing element there. Lots but in the 7,000 to 10,000 range are totally suitable for this, depending on what neighborhood they're in. You can put them in neighborhoods where there are alleys, where there's corner lots that are oversized. An important part of the process would be actually inventorying the in-law units and so-called illegal units that are already there, and I hope they overlook my unit. I live there in Barron Park in an area that is RIF also with non-conforming grandfathered-in type housing.
Thank you. I apologize again for skipping you. I don't know how I did that.